Welcome to Breakfast on the Bay, a signature live talk summer series that celebrates the communities, companies, and conservationists who live, work, and play in the Chesapeake Bay watershed. This year, the Alliance is celebrating our 50th anniversary, 5 decades of convening diverse voices and leveraging resources to implement solutions for clean water in your local streams and rivers and ultimately reaching the Chesapeake Bay. The Alliance works in 4 program areas: agriculture, forests, green infrastructure, and stewardship and engagement across the 64,000 square mile Chesapeake Bay watershed. We have offices located in Annapolis, Maryland, Richmond, Virginia, Washington, D.C., and Lancaster, Pennsylvania. As an organization, we value collaboration. We believe in partnering across sectors and regions to achieve a larger collective impact. Inclusive, we are partners who demonstrate integrity and amplify diverse voices for an equitable impact. Results driven, we drive with data, promote informed action, and hold ourselves and our partners accountable for measurable impact. In celebration of our 50th anniversary, we are bringing 50 stories to life. Each story features individuals, projects, ideas, places, and partnerships representing 5 decades of restored lands and waters in the Chesapeake Bay. I will share access to these inspiring stories in the chat. If you are joining us from Zoom and have any questions throughout the event, please click the chat button in the bottom of your screen. A chat box will open. Here you can send any and all questions and comments. Be sure to select everyone from the drop-down menu so it's not just sent to panelists. Please take a moment now to type in the chat where you're joining us from. If you're joining on Facebook, you can share your questions in the comment box on the right side of the screen. Lastly, thank you to our donors who have made this talk possible. Our 50 years of on-the-ground work would not be possible without you. In honor of our 50th anniversary, our generous donors have provided a $25,000 gift to match any donations made to the Alliance this summer. If you would like to become a donor and immediately double your gift, please visit allianceforthebay.org/donate. Just $5 a month can make an impact on the most productive estuary in the United States. If you're interested in other Breakfast on the Bay talks, please visit our website, allianceforthebay.org/breakfastonthebay, to see a full list of events and registration links. Now on to today's talk. In 1972, River and Trail Outfitters began as a family-run outfitter dedicated to providing a safe and professional outdoor experience for people of all ages in the Harpers Ferry region. 2 generations later, they offer a wide variety of outdoor adventures, from canoeing to ziplining. One of the most popular youth development programs is the River Quest Field School, where students come to learn about water quality and ecology right on the water. Today, we welcome Jamie Alberti, our Green Infrastructure Program Director, and our partner, John Ganano from River and Trail Outfitters, to learn about how we can connect with our local waterways through recreation.
Thanks, Lauren. And thanks everyone for joining us. And again, if you have questions, please add them to the chat, whether you're on Zoom or on Facebook, and we'll be sure to get them before we end up here. So like Lauren said, I'm Jamie Alberti. I'm the Green Infrastructure Program Director with the Alliance, and I've been at the Alliance for over 20 years now. So worked on a lot of different projects. The last 13 years, I've worked on a program called River Smart Homes in Washington, D.C., which is a residential stormwater program where we help property owners reduce stormwater on their property, keep it on their property, and from entering local waterways through the installation of environmental practices like rain gardens, conservation landscaping, rain barrels, permeable pavers. So the last 13 years, I've been really focused on the green infrastructure. Before that, I kind of dabbled in a lot of different work at the Alliance, and a lot of it involving volunteer activities, such as tree plantings, even got some volunteer scuba divers to help us transplant underwater grass, all working to increase wildlife habitat, reduce erosion, stabilize shorelines, that sort of thing. I've also dabbled in the policy arena with our Citizens Advisory Committee, worked in the DC public school system, providing some environmental education and kind of trying to provide kids with some hands-on learning experience so that they can learn more about the Chesapeake Bay watershed. All of those projects were really wonderful. Enjoyed all of them. But really, when I look back to all of the work that I've done at the Alliance, one of those programs that I really remember most fondly is the river sojourns. And I did several of them over the course of the years, particularly on the Patuxent River, Potomac River, James River. We also had one on the Susquehanna River. And really, it's one of those things that, you know, we're always trying to provide learning opportunities for the public, you know, to learn about their watershed, things that they can do, but there really is no better way to make a meaningful experience than to get them out into the watershed, into the rivers, you know, going on hikes, seeing what's out there, making that connection really does make a huge difference. So really, you know, those river sojourns, you know, really the key is, you know, getting out there, educating the public, the participants that are on those trips, doing different, we've done some restoration activities, we've installed conservation landscaping, you know, during the course of the week while we were out paddling at certain locations. We've done oyster reef seeding, we've done fish sampling, you know, all of these activities, taking tours along the way, meeting with local officials, you know, all these opportunities, you know, exploring the locks along the canal of the Potomac River. So experiences that folks may not have in their everyday life. So trying to introduce them to new things, but doing so in a way that's fun so that they'll remember it. They might not remember, they might be a little fuzzy on the details, but if you can provide that experience that just gives them that warm, fuzzy feeling, thinking back on it, you remember that trip? I really had a great time on that. So kind of blending those learning opportunities with the fun aspect was really, you know, what the Sojourns was all about. And so really, you know, I'm excited to be here with John today with River and Trail Outfitters. The Alliance and River and Trail started our partnership long while back on one of the Potomac River sojourns, and River and Trail provided outfitting service for that trip. And really, the thing that I remember the most about that is the guides that came along on the trip. Safety was their #1 priority, but they also were really great about integrating those learning experiences with the fun. So, you know, a hugely successful trip all around, and River and Trail was really a great part of that, integral in making it a fun experience for all of the participants. So I'm going to turn it over to John Ganano, who's here with us from River and Trail. Thank you, John, for being here. And I'm just going to let you take it away, introduce yourself, River and Trail, and the programs that you offer.
Thank you so much, Jamie, and the everyone at Alliance for the Bay. There is so much that parallels our mission and the mission for the Alliance for the Bay. And it's really great to have this opportunity to speak to everybody. I think that this perhaps we can rekindle some of those partnerships again with the sojourns and maybe even something new for the future. So that's very exciting to me. So again, my name is John Ganano. I'm the general manager of River and Trail Outfitters. I'm also the son-in-law. So, and I married into the company. My wife, Natasha, there on the screen is in blue, the blue top. And I'm next to her. Her brother George is next to her, and then his family. And then you see Unsuk Bailey there. She is our fearless leader and owner, Unsuk there. And then Lee, her husband, is next to her. Lee Lee and Unsuck started the business in 1972. So it was interesting to hear you mention that it's 50 years for the Alliance for the Bay. We'll be hitting our 50th year next year. Lee sadly, tragically passed away on November 1st of 2019. And it was a real shock to all of us. I think about him every day. I hear him, hear his advice constantly. I think most prominently, my wife and I last year when the pandemic hit, early on, we were really wondering whether we were going to be able to have the season or not, and whether it was going to be even worth trying. And both Natasha and I could imagine Lee sitting at the kitchen table, pounding it and telling us we had to find our way forward. We had to figure out how to make it work. And we both felt very confident in that, and that was what he was saying to us. And we're all very glad that he did that to us. And because it was a very hard year, but it was also a very successful year in many ways. So the company is stronger than ever, really, after COVID and continuing on. So yeah, we're 50 years later. You know, it's definitely evolved a lot. When Lee started the business, there was no other outfitters in the area. So he was really starting it from scratch, but he had the experience of having grown up in Minnesota, of knowing about the outfitters in the Minnesota and the North Lakes there in Minnesota, the boundary waters of Minnesota. And from his memories of those experiences growing up, is what he used as a template for starting something in Harpers Ferry. And so it's interesting to hear about how things started in the early days. They would just rent you a canoe, and you would run your own shuttle, and then you would go up and run the rapids on the Shenandoah River, what we call the staircase, and pick you up at the end, or you bring it back to us at the end. It's evolved quite a bit now. It's rafting and guided and helmets and all that good stuff. So I understand there were a lot of dents in canoes in those days. But yeah, we really look forward to this talk and talking to everybody about it. You know, hearing whatever questions you may have.
Great, thanks, John. I think we have a poll to launch, so see if we can get that rolling. Okay, so what is your favorite water activity? And you have a whole selection, and I know it might be hard to choose just one, but if you had to pick one, what is your favorite activity to do out on the water? All right, give everyone a few more seconds. All right, I guess if you could close the poll. If anyone has anything they want to share about an experience or anything, you're welcome to type it in the chat as well. All right. John, I was hoping that we could move on to talk a little bit more about RiverQuest, kind of how that got started, where the idea came from, how it's evolved, that sort of thing. And you're on mute, John.
Sorry about that. The RiverQuest Field School is a concept that came out of a specific trip and started by a science teacher in Loudoun County, a gentleman named John DeMary. And so the field school itself is an idea of multiple different trips that would get educational trips focused around the Chesapeake Bay watershed. And the primary trip that we do is a canoe trip. It started out, I would say, probably close to 20 years ago. Sorry, maybe, yeah, 20 years. Wow. Yeah, probably 20 years ago. John DeMary was a science teacher, former teacher of the year in the state of Virginia. And he worked with one of the Bay organizations. I can't remember which one exactly, but he would rent canoes from them, and they would do a water study, macroinvertebrate study. And one day they didn't have any boats for him, and so he called up Lee because he was a raft guide for us at the time. And he called up Lee and he said, "Hey, do you got some canoes for us to do this trip?" And of course we did. And so we let John run his trips. And for many years, for about 10 years, that was all that was. It was just, we would provide John the canoes and the equipment and guides if needed. And he would run his own trip. So a little bit, when I joined the company full time in 2011, one of the very first trips that I went on was one of John DeMary's trips. And I had been a teacher for 15 years prior to joining the company. So to see the students out there on this field trip, having so much fun and really learning so much and having it hands-on, as a teacher, I knew that this is exactly what teachers are looking for. They're looking for a field trip that is fun, but it's also educational and applicable to what they're learning, what they're teaching, and what their students are learning. And so after that trip, I said, decided that, this is something that needs to get out beyond John DeMary's, just beyond just him providing it for his students. So we really began to formalize the trip and develop a curriculum for it, and talk to teachers about the trip. And they started to come. A lot of them from Loudoun County, but we also had others from Frederick and from as far as Baker, West Virginia, which is a couple hours away. And many of them will come year after year after year. The pandemic has definitely put a damper on that one because it was primarily based for schools. But we did do an effort last fall, and we did get a trip out of homeschool kids. And so that may be a concept that we can start to develop as well. But as you see there on the website, it's really a threefold program. The first is it's a canoe trip, and so we teach basic safety and canoeing strokes and things like that, so that they get an understanding of what they're going to do. So this trip starts out with the basics of canoeing, and then the next step is learning about the Chesapeake Bay watershed, what it is, and where we are in it. And then the final step is a macroinvertebrate study, where the participants get in the river and with nets and pick up rocks in a swift moving riffle and capture what floats down. And then they find the macroinvertebrates in the net. They classify it using something simple as egg cartons. And they compare that, what they found, to a chart of macroinvertebrates, and look at the sensitivities of those indicator species to get a better understanding of the health of the river. And then you finish it off. It's a great program. It's really, it's near and dear to my heart as an educator. It's just a lot of fun. It adds a lot of meaning to our company and our programming. So we're hoping to be able to grow it and expand it in the future.
Great, sounds wonderful. And I know we have a little video clip that we want to share about the program as well.
Woo! Let's get right into it here. How many people care about the planet? How many people care about the river? How many people care about the Chesapeake Bay? All the things that we're going to be going over today. We are going to frame today's program on what each person can do, simple things that we can do, little things that we can do to help the big picture. Today will change their lives. Today they need to decide whether they're part of the problem or whether they're part of the solution. Now look here for a second, ladies. Reach and pull. Reach and pull. I use my top hand to push while the bottom hand is pulling. And then anytime I want to steer, that's when I go back here and I steer to the left and I steer to the right. I can see your muscles getting bigger all the way over here. By the end of the day, you're going to be buff and tough. We're going to stop about a mile downstream and do some watershed studies and have them figure out where they are in the watershed.
What's the difference between this side of the river and this side of the river? What do you call it when there's heavy vegetation on the riverbank? What's a riparian buffer? 90% of the water that hits this side of the river ends up in the ground. What happens to that side?
It runs off and goes into the river.
What is it?
It's runoff.
It's runoff. In your backyard, you can do as much as anybody simply by taking care of runoff. Number one problem.
What two rivers meet in Harpers Ferry? The Potomac and Shenandoah. So that's Harpers Ferry. So I have empowered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 kids to go help the other kids that don't have a clue. Yeah, so you'll hold it like that, and you'll hold it like this, and come on out here behind this rock. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna put this down like that and keep this end up, and you kind of make a bellow, like a glove, a baseball glove, catching. And then if you lift the rock up here, you can gently rub the bottom of it, reach up, and then let the water go into the net. So anything that's living under there is gonna go into the net.
Here's what you have. So what's that tell you about the condition of the water here?
It's either really good or really bad.
Well, if it's really good, you got a lot of these. If it's really bad, these can live anywhere. But these guys got to have good conditions.
Now my guess is whoever got the wettest and the muddiest probably had the most fun. All right, now how many here learned something today? amazing. We had fun and learned at the same time. Now, I want to thank everybody here for being my excuse for going to the river today. All right, and having this kind of opportunity to do these kind of things. I want to thank the teachers who took their time to make this happen for everybody. And I wish everybody good luck with your lives, no matter what you want to do or where you want to go. There's a river, there's a lake, there's something that needs your help, and we need to learn to take better care of it.
That really gave a great overview. I know we have a few questions. We like to do a Q&A. So as anyone has any thoughts, any questions, again, please add it to the chat, whether you're on Zoom or Facebook, and we'll get to them. But John, first question for you, just in watching that video, what is the typical age groups for the participants of RiverQuest, or does it vary?
Well, typically it's, I would say about 6th grade and up. And mainly that's because of the it being at a canoe trip. So you're kind of asking for trouble putting anything younger than 2 12-year-olds in a canoe, especially on a large scale. But one of the things that we developed for younger children, as well as for schools maybe that can't afford to do a canoe trip, is to do a land-based version of the same trip. So that trip can be done as a hike. Yeah, don't stand up in a canoe. You know, we can do that trip as a hike, where you do a hike through the woods and you have the talks about the watershed, and then you can go out into the creek or go out into the river and do the study. So that can cut down the price quite a bit, as well as make it more available for younger kids.
And can you speak to, you know, how teachers and schools get involved with this program, how they learn about it? Is it doing presentations like this, or, you know, word of mouth? How is the word spread?
Yeah, I mean, all of the above, really. I've found it very difficult to get meetings with teachers. And the reason being, and having been a teacher, I completely understand it. When they're working during the school day, you can't really, you know, they don't have much free time. And it's not like a teacher has an office that you can call. So it's a bit difficult to really be able to sort of have any sort of mass outreach to teachers. So a lot of it has been word of mouth. We've done some advertising as well in some educational magazines, and then also just through the website. So teachers who are thinking about that kind of thing and encounter it. But it's definitely, it's got some challenges. It's tough for in terms of scheduling and getting the word out, but it's also, you know, teachers have to schedule it in advance. It's hard for schools to schedule field trips. So a lot of times they occur in the spring, but truth be told, the best time to do it is in the fall. So September, in my opinion, is the best weather month that we have. You generally don't have much rain, and you don't have to worry. The weather's still nice, and the rivers are low, so you're not dealing with high water. But it's hard for teachers to plan a field trip that quickly. So we do encourage them to think ahead and try to go in the fall, but for the most part, it occurs in the months of April and May. Sometimes we'll get a September, October one.
Great. And is the teachers that participate, are they able to kind of make suggestions for the topics covered, or do you usually have that preset for the school groups that come out?
Yeah, it's pretty preset. We stick with that same formula. So it's a very much geared. I mean, obviously, if you've got younger versus older, you're gonna adapt it in that way.
Yeah, this picture right here, that's actually Eric standing up taking a group photo. He was one of the guides from River and Trail on this trip. Yeah, great experience, really, all around.
You know what a year that was?
Possibly 2004, maybe 2005, somewhere around there, I think.
I think many years later, he moved out to Moab, Utah, and worked in some of the bigger rivers on the Colorado River, and he took us out on the Colorado River one time.
Yeah, a great guy. And you know, the other piece too is, and there might be a few photos in here coming up too, is, you know, he really spent the time. You know, safety was definitely the #1 priority, always had a morning safety talk. You know, anything coming up ahead, you know, we always went over the plan of action, that sort of thing. Everyone was, you know, comfortable and prepared in that regard. But he also took the time, you know, kind of like in the video too, of giving pointers to folks on paddling techniques, things that could make their life a little easier, that sort of thing. So, you know, not just being there to offer those safety services, but really being a participant in the group as well. And, you know, folks would be able to come to him and ask questions and feel really comfortable, you know, in that regard. So it really was a great partnership, and led to the success of the trip. Okay, I think shifting gears a little bit and kind of going back more to river and trail outfitters in general. So as you mentioned, River and Trails was established in 1972 in Harpers Ferry. The owners, Lee and Unsuk, were originally from Minnesota and Korea, respectively. So the question to you, John, is what about Harpers Ferry kind of drew them there? Like, why start the business there? What drew them to the area and establishing the business there?
Right, that's a great question. So they were living in Washington, D.C. When they first were married in the 60s. And in fact, I think it's interesting to note that their marriage would have been illegal in a number of states at the time, being different races. But they met at American University. They were both studying journalism there. Lee was brought to DC by political. He was into politics, and he worked for a congressman from Minnesota. And Mrs. Bailey was working at the World Bank. But they decided they wanted to start a family and live in the suburbs, like many people do. Lee they had gone on a hike, I believe, with the Sierra Club at Maryland Heights in Harpers Ferry, and so really were attracted to the area after that hike. And so they purchased a home, and Lee was commuting into Washington from there on the train. And suddenly it dawned upon him that this would be a perfect place for an outfitter. So he bought a few canoes and some bikes, and the rest is history.
Great. Yeah, and Harpers Ferry is such a neat area, and you know, the confluence with the Potomac and Shenandoah right there, it has a lot to offer. But what would you say is your most favorite part? What do you like the most about the Harpers Ferry area?
Wow. I mean, you're right. It's got great trails, hiking trails. There are, within a half hour, I believe there's 4 national parks. Certainly you've got Harpers Ferry National Park, and then the C&O Canal National Park. You can bike, you can hike, you can paddle. I think something that I personally like about it is that the rivers are fun, but they're not. I personally don't know how I would like to run an outfitter with Class 5 rapids. Our Class 3s are about all I need. So, it's a great starter river. It's a great introduction to whitewater, but it's nothing that's going to be too overwhelming. So I like that. There are still a few untapped stretches of the river that are really nice to visit. My favorite is from what's called Potomac Wayside. That's at the 340 bridge over the Potomac, where Maryland and Virginia meet. And you paddle down to Brunswick, and there's a 3 Class 2 rapids. There's a beautiful island with nesting birds of prey, lots of eagles and ospreys and egrets, and the great blue heron as well. So there's a lot of that. That's a nice stretch, and not many people do it.
Yeah, I have to say, variety really is a spice of life. On the Potomac Sojourns, we did the, little rapids on the Potomac, which for me, being a novice, was very nerve-wracking, but, having done it, it was so much fun. Having the outfitter, I would never be able to, tackle that on my own. But having, the guides there, not only, looking out for safety, but they were really supportive and, encouraging. So that was really helpful. And I've also done a river and trail trip on the Shenandoah, just tubing down the river. So there's something to be said for just laying back and chilling and relaxing as well. Being able to take the family, the younger kids on something like that was a lot of fun. So yeah, it definitely has, something to offer for everyone, really, like you said.
Yeah.
All right. So I know you guys all do a number of trips, lots of different types of group. Do you have a favorite memory of a particular group or trip, or more than one that you went on that just really sticks in your mind?
I've been thinking about this question for 2 weeks. I can't think of one particular thing, but I have been thinking about what's really motivates me, and what I always kind of come back to as a core value. Part of our mission statement is that we make memories that last a lifetime. And just looking at these pictures is part of that. Whether you're a guide or a guest, we want to make memories. As far as our guides go, many of them say it's the best job they've ever had. In fact, we received an email just this year from a guy who worked for us in 1976, in the summer of 1976, and he said it was the best summer of his life. And for someone to think back to that and then take the time to contact us and tell us about it says a lot to me. And it reminds me of what we're doing and why we're doing it. And then for the guests too, we may see some guests come every year, some guests come once in a lifetime. And no matter what it is, we want you to remember coming on this trip. And this is kind of an interesting aside. So when I was a child, my church youth group came on a trip with River and Trail. And I started dating Natasha. I started piecing those memories together and remembering that I had probably met her when I was about 8 years old on a trip with River and Trail. And I think I would just add, sometimes I would just encourage people, don't be discouraged by rainy weather, because sometimes rainy weather can make the trip even more memorable and more fun. Some of my fondest memories are when you get a downpour in the middle of your trip and you just, you have that sort of reckless abandon. You just kind of, you forget about it and just continue on, and what the heck, you're wet anyway. So, there was a group of concierge I don't know the plural, concierges from the Washington, D.C., some of the fine hotels in D.C. came out, and we gave them a trip so they could see what it's all about and let people know about it. And it was a complete downpour. And this was in October, so it was cold. And I thought for sure they wouldn't come, but they still wanted to come. And these are not outdoorsy people by any means. And they had a blast. I mean, they showed up in penny loafer, you know, and but they had a blast, and they said that they would recommend it as a rainy day activity. So that's kind of what I thought about, you know, when thinking about that question.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on, you know, no matter the weather, you know, you really, for at least for the sojourn trips that I went on, you know, you're with a group of people, many of which you've never met before, and you're together for a week-long trip. And, you know, there's a lot of work to be done over the course of that trip, whether, you know, pitching tents or helping, you know, carry boats to the water, out of the water. And everyone really pitched in, but you know, that downpour of rain when you're all like huddling together really can just, you know, promote the camaraderie in the group a little bit more. And like you said, just build more memories. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think you may have kind of got already a little piece of this question, but just gonna throw out if you have anything to add. So there's a lot of different outfitters in a lot of different locations throughout the Chesapeake watershed. In your opinion, what makes a river and trail experience different from those experiences that you can get from another outfitter? Like why, you know, would people come to river and trail?
Yeah, it's a great question, and a lot of people, you know, ask about that. And I think I don't like to put anybody else down, but I like to say what we offer. What we have to offer is nearly 50 years of experience. We're still owned by the same family that started the business, and we still have those core values that and mindset that started a business from scratch that where nobody else around. There's a rainy picture. And number one is safety comes first. Your safety is more important than our numbers. So that's going to come through. You may not always see that, but you know, we certainly, that's always our first concern. So whether it's river levels is usually the biggest safety concern, or where we're going to be putting you on the river is very important to us, so that we set the stage for safety. The other key tenet is our environmental focus. We try to minimize the trash and our impact in the river, and we are the only company that has a trip like this. Now, maybe there are some others, at least in the Harpers Ferry area. We're the only one doing that environmental study, and so and we're also the company that I think we think creatively in terms of doing programs like the Sojourn and doing programs like the River Quest to sort of step out of the norm and put together a trip that's a little different. We've got a lot of staff that have been with us for many years. And so that says a lot, because a lot of people a lot of people who work for us are very passionate about the river and very passionate about the environment. And so since we share that, you know, share those core values. And then we also do a number of river cleanups with local organizations to keep the rivers clean. So I think those are what we focus on to be our best.
Yeah, and I definitely would say, you know, the Alliance was really, really lucky to have River and Trail as a partner for the Sojourn trips when we were doing them. Unfortunately, you know, we had to stop doing them due to financial constraints in offering them, but it really was a wonderful partnership. And, you know, the participants had such a great time. Like, we didn't have to worry about safety because that was taken care of, and you know, we could rely on the guides to do their thing. And so we could worry about having fun and learning what, you know, we had for the day's activities planned. So yeah, definitely a wonderful partnership. And if we were to do it again, you know, hopefully we could get back out there and team up again.
Yeah, and just to add to that, you know, a season like 2018, which was the rainiest year on record, really forces you to, I mean, the whole season was essentially a crisis mode. And I mean, in the sense that the rivers were constantly going up and down. And we had to make a lot of tough choices that year about what to run and when to call it off. And what grounded me was always coming back to that first tenet of our core values, is being safety comes first. And once you have that, then that helps you make the decision, you know, on those borderline calls, or when there's pressure because you're having to cancel 500 people yet again, you know. I mean, that doesn't happen a lot, but in those years when it's just happening continually, you know, it really stretches your limits, and you come back to that, you know, well, what is our core values? What are we all about? And let that drive the decision making. So that's kind of how those things really work in.
Right. Yeah, it definitely is heartbreaking to have to cancel a trip, but you're exactly right. You know, safety is the most important thing. And, you know, it would be a much worse situation to put people in an unsafe situation if something were to happen. So, yeah. So I know you do a lot of different groups, a lot of different activities. You know, we talked about, the youth program here, and you know, working with these youth groups, what would you say is your most meaningful experience in working with the youth? And this is a two-part question. And what would you say the kids enjoy the most about these river and trail trips?
Wow. You know, we have a lot of different groups, so it's hard to really pinpoint it under one. I mean, I mentioned that River Quest trip that I did, the canoe trip, just after having been a teacher, and just seeing the smiles on the kids' faces as they're learning was really impressive. But we have had other camps, Camp Green Top, which is a camp for children with disabilities. And we make adaptations for them, but we get them out on the river, and we actually do whitewater rafting with them. And that's pretty special. A lot of our guides really enjoy doing that. You know, there was a time I remember getting a call on a busy Saturday, and a woman called, and she had a child who was paraplegic, I believe, and asking, you know, can we put him on a trip? And you know, I really wanted to get him on, so we took the time to find the right guide who was a teacher, who just had the right demeanor for it, and we made sure that they were well taken care of, and were able to carry the young boy from the takeout and up the hill and things like that, and everybody just worked together to make it happen. So you know, those are the things that you really think about, or you get, you know, that really remind you of what's special about what you're doing.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. For that family, that must have been, a one in a lifetime experience. And for you to go the extra mile to make that happen really speaks a lot to you and your company. Okay, one last question that I'm gonna put out there before we have one more video to show. What is the coolest wildlife that you've seen while out on the water, or coolest experience that you've seen involving
Well,
wildlife?
It used to be the eagle, but it's fairly common now to see an eagle, which is great. It speaks to work from the Alliance for the Bay. It speaks to the work of many environmental groups, that seeing an eagle on just about every trip is a reality. So that's, to me, that's quite cool. I'm pretty sure I recently saw a falcon. They are nesting. They have a place for them to nest on Maryland Heights, and I saw a bird that I couldn't immediately recognize, and I looked up what a peregrine falcon looks like, and I'm pretty sure I saw a peregrine falcon. So that's pretty neat. So yeah, so that'd probably be my two biggies.
Yeah, a peregrine falcon was my middle school mascot, and I actually did just see one a couple weeks ago in my backyard enjoying a snack, which I thought was cool, but the kids not so much. But yeah. All right, so we do have another video to show. So we're going to flip over to that, and then we're going to wrap it up after that.
Hi, I'm Kayla from River and Trail Outfitters.
So what do you like most about working at River and Trail, and what's your favorite memory?
My favorite thing about working at River and Trail is that I can be so independent and that I meet a lot of people. Favorite memory, quite a few, but I think my last time with Lee would have been my favorite memory.
What's a fun fact about River and Trail that some people might not know about?
Fun fact, River and Trail is actually the most knowledgeable and experienced and oldest outfitter in the area.
And have you been on any of River and Trail's trips? And if so, what's your favorite trip or favorite part of the trip?
Yes, I have. I've been on plenty. Favorite part of the trip, honestly, is just getting to be with my coworkers outside of work. Rafting's probably my favorite.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Hi, this is Noah from River and Trail Outfitters and the Brunswick Family Campground.
What is a fun fact about River and Trail that some people might not know?
Well, River and Trail was started in 1972 and has been a family business from 1972 until now. I'm actually the grandson of the founder and owner, but we have had 3 generations of Baileys working at River and Trail Outfitters since 1972.
Have you been on any River and Trail trips? And if so, what's your favorite part about them?
I have been on pretty much every single River and Trail trip. And I would say my most favorite is probably the whitewater rafting, just because it's a bit of a longer trip and it's probably the most exciting.
Awesome. Thanks, Noah. I'm ready.
Hi, I'm Joni and I work at River and Trail Outfitters.
So what do you like most about working at River and Trail, and what's your favorite memory from working here?
What I like most is the community and the management. They're really good. They're always understanding, and they really work with the employees to help them make sure everything's ready to go and everything's safe. My favorite memory is probably like the guide picnics or the staff picnics. When we all come together, we have fun on the water and have a great time because it's like a family almost.
So what's a fun fact about River and Trail that some people might not know about?
River and Trail is the oldest company, the oldest outfitter in the area.
Have you been on any River and Trail trips? And if so, what's your favorite part?
I have. Before I worked here, I came as a kid, and my favorite part was besides the rapids, it was the breaks in between, like the lunch breaks in between with the snacks and the applesauces. I always loved those.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Those were great. It really does speak a lot to, the atmosphere at River and Trail, to have, staff speak so highly of everyone there, the camaraderie there. So John, I just want to give you the last opportunity to just share with everyone what other kinds of opportunities are available to come out on a River and Trail trip.
Okay, great. Well, yeah, so let me just say thank you to the Alliance for the Bay for this opportunity to talk. It's really very much appreciated, and hope to be able to continue conversations in different ways. Yeah, absolutely. Now's the time to come. Summer is here, so whether you want to just relax on a tube or see some white water in a raft, or go camping at our Brunswick campground, there's just so much to do. So you can't do it all in one day. You gotta come more than once. So yeah, just come on out, give us a call, see our website, look at what there is to do. And when you come out, be sure to see the national park. Harpers Ferry National Park is just a great place to see. It's so much to see and learn there. And just make it a day or a weekend, but it's a lot of fun, and it's not too far away.
Yes, you can't go wrong with the area. So much to do, and there's something for everyone.
That's absolutely right.
Well, thank you, John. I appreciate you joining us today, and I'm going to turn it back over to Lauren to close this out. Lauren, you're on mute.
Thanks, Jamie. I was just saying thank you so much to both Jamie and John. This was a fantastic discussion, and I can't think of a better way to connect with your local waterways. To all of our attendees, thank you for joining us for Breakfast on the Bay. Once again, we'd like to thank our donors who have made this talk possible. In honor of our 50 years of on-the-ground work, our generous donors have provided a $25,000 gift to match any donations made to the Alliance this summer. Your donation will be matched 1-for-1 to help us double this gift so we can continue to restore the lands and waters of the Chesapeake Bay. If you are interested in other Breakfast on the Bay talks, you can visit our website at allianceforthebay/breakfast on the bay for a full list of events and registration links. Thank you again, and I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their day.